Hi movie fans, welcome back to Movie Synopsis. Today I will be going over the one I love. It's a funny, quirky, and original story. Stay to the end for our conclusion. We hear a man explaining how he and his partner jumping into a random swimming pool and getting caught was the best day of his life, so he decided to recreate the experience for their anniversary. They jump in and expectantly wait for the owner to come and shout at them again, but he never does, which disappoints them both. The woman explains how that made her feel sad, and that they now need to try and recreate their happiness. We see that they have been talking with a counselor. Ethan says he has apologized for what he did and that he would like to move on, but Sophie says it's time to move on when she says it's time to move on. Oh boy, the counselor listens to what they have to say and says he has the perfect place for them. It's a retreat about an hour north of them, and every couple he has sent has come back renewed. They agree and drive to the sweet-looking house. They make themselves comfortable and look around the house and grounds. Ethan goes out in the garden and finds a building called the Coop. Ethan goes in and takes a look, finding a small recording studio. Back in the garden, he walks around to the guest house and goes in. When he is looking around in the guest house, he finds glowing testimonials from other couples who have stayed at the retreat. That evening, they have supper with wine and chat away. Sophie pulls out a bag of swag weed, peppered with seeds and twigs.
That's grounds for divorce in a recreational state like Cali.
They smoke together and share a kiss or two. Sophie is outside smoking, and while Ethan does the dishes, she goes to explore the guest house. While she's looking around, she finds some matryoshka dolls and starts opening them. She hears one of the dolls fall on the floor, but she did not drop it, so looks out of the room and sees Ethan. He says that she was right and they need to try more new things, like weekends away. He says he feels excited about them again, and she agrees. They get intimate on the sofa and say they love each other before playing around. He asks her,
"You want to sleep here tonight?"
She says,
"Can we?"
She goes back to the main house to get some of her belongings. Sophie walks back to the house with a big shit-eating grin on her face. As she is about to go upstairs, she hears the television in the next room. When she goes to look, she sees Ethan sleeping on the sofa. She asked him how he got back so quickly from the guest house. She says it's a good joke, but then she asks how he really got back. He says,
"What?"
Then asks why she is sweaty. She tells him they just had sex, but he says he doesn't know what she's talking about. She tells him to stop messing around. He says he is not doing anything. She calls him an asshole and leaves. Ethan goes to check out the guest house, where he finds empty bottles of wine, some grapes, and part of a joint that he lights up. Before too long, he is snoozing on the couch when Sophie lays down and joins him. He says that he is sorry, and they both say they love each other and snuggle. Ethan wakes up hungover to the sound of Sophie cooking him some breakfast. Ethan wants to clear the air over the fight the night before, and to forget that it happened, blaming it on the swag and wine. Sophie says okay. Ethan then asked what happened. Was she making a joke, or did she actually think she had sex with him? Avoiding the subject, she says what's important is they made up. He then says they didn't make up. She says he needs to eat some breakfast and puts his food down. He exclaims that she has made him bacon, but she normally hates it when he eats bacon. Ethan is getting a little freaked out, and who can blame him? Ethan goes back to the main house and makes his way upstairs to check in the bedroom. He has a bit of a moment, and then he hears the toilet flushing. As he steps out of the bedroom, he sees Sophie stepping out of the bathroom. He has a very shocked look on his face, and she says,
"What?"
Ethan takes Sophie by the hand back to the guest house. When Ethan gets in the house, he starts saying that there were plates on the sideboard that are not there now. He starts calling out and searching the house. Sophie is not sure what's going on. He goes on to say that the smell of bacon has gone, which is virtually impossible. Sophie walks out of the house saying,
"Why are you acting like this?"
Ethan follows Sophie and tries to understand what's happening. He says there is some weird Twilight Zone shit going on. He says they had a nice dinner together.
Yes.
Then she woke him up and said they had sex together.
"Because we did."
Then he went into the guest house and fell asleep, and she snuggled with him.
What are you talking about? No, I didn't.
He says that is crazy. He then decides to go in the guest house by himself. He makes his way into the house with trepidation. He hears the shower running. Slowly opening the bathroom door, he peeks his head in and says hello. Sophie opens the shower curtain and says,
"Hey, babe."
Can you hand me a towel? Ethan exits the house and marches up to Sophie, telling her, You are in that shower. I just handed you a towel. Sophie says, You're scaring me. I don't know why you're doing this. Ethan tells her to go see for herself, adding,
Careful.
Sophie enters the house and sees Ethan doing sit-ups on the floor. He turns to her and asks where she's been all morning. She lies that she's been walking. He gets up and closes the curtains, then walks over to give Sophie a hug. Outside, Ethan is wondering where Sophie has got to, so goes over to open the door, but it is locked. He tries looking through a window and opening the French doors, but has no luck. He starts calling her name. He's had enough and decides to throw a large rock at the door. It does squat. Sophie comes out of the guest house freaking out about Ethan being in the house exercising. They are both confused and have no idea what's going on. They pack up their shit and get the hell out of there. They stop at a diner and try and wrap their heads around what just happened. Ethan suggests it's a cosmic aberration and they should just forget about it and never talk about it. Sophie convinces Ethan to go back with her because she feels it will be good for their relationship. As they drive back to the retreat, Ethan says he's having a hard time processing her having sex with the other Ethan. She said she wouldn't cheat on him knowingly. Now they have to work out who is going to go in first. Ethan goes in the house first and sees the bacon and eggs still on the table. He sits down with Sophie and asks some questions and then asks if she wants to go for a walk. She doesn't, so he goes out by himself. Ethan comes out and tells Sophie that the other Sophie is convinced she is her. Ethan wants Sophie to challenge the other Ethan, but Sophie does not think that is the best course of action. They go to the house to agree on a strategy to explore the phenomena. Rule 1, no sex. Rule 2, no spying. Rule 3, if anyone gets uncomfortable, they can stop the whole thing at any time and go home. Rule 4, be honest about what happens in there. Sophie goes in first and they agree on a 15-minute time limit. Ethan is not to wait outside for her. When Sophie goes into the house, she sees Ethan painting a picture of her. They both agree it's not fantastic and she says she looks a little bitchy. He says sometimes you are bitchy. Ouch. He says that's okay cause sometimes I am an asshole. He fixes her a cocktail and she gets a little bit nervous as they sit together. Ethan is watching the clock and soon goes looking for her. It is not long until Ethan is looking through the window. Sophie is getting a neck massage. She looks up and sees him peering through the window. Ethan hurriedly gets out of the way and goes sit in the garden. Sophie soon comes out and asks him what he's doing. They discuss what happened. Sophie says how the other Ethan is just like him but a little, and then trails off. A little what? Says Ethan. Over dinner, they discuss the differences between the Ethans. She says he seems like a memory of him, and the other Ethan's hair is slightly messy, and he doesn't wear glasses. Have you tried contacts? She asked him. That night Ethan can't sleep, and he asked Sophie if he can have his session now, and she agrees. Ethan plants his phone to record what happens when Sophie is in the guest house. Man, this guy's insecure. During Sophie's next session, Ethan and her talk about the nesting dolls. Ethan is acting like a stalker outside, and once Sophie leaves, he quickly goes into the guest house to retrieve his phone. The phone is missing and he's soon confronted with the other, sweet as pie, Sophie, who says she has found his phone, gives it to him, and leaves. As soon as he's out of the house, he tries to listen to the recordings, but all he's got is static. He can't believe it. Sophie goes back into the guest house, making her way up to the loft space where Ethan is. Ethan asks why she does not kiss him anymore. She tries to ignore the question, but he moves closer. The scene ends. Back in the main house, Sophie is reading in bed, and Ethan is complaining about how some of his shirts are missing. Sophie gets a text from the guest house Ethan and laughs. Ethan is surprised that they have cell phones and wants to know what plan they have. Guest house Ethan wakes up to an empty bed. In the kitchen, Sophie asks Ethan why he cheated on her. He makes some excuses and says he has no excuse and thanks her for sticking by him when she could have abandoned him. He does a good job of this. She gives him a big kiss. Switch to the main house and Ethan comes into the kitchen and asks Sophie about getting up early. She said she wanted to watch TV and gets defensive. Ethan talks about the strange weirdness going on and that he's not interested in that Sophie when he has this Sophie here. He asks if she agrees.
Of course.
Ethan gets some odd messages, one sarcastically thanking him for calling him at 2 a.m. asking where he lived. One from his mother saying how their conversation yesterday didn't sound like him, and the last message saying the street you grew up on was Parkman. I hope that clears things up. Ethan goes back to the house. Ethan tells Sophie about the messages he received and that he thinks it might be the other Ethan who called his friends. She says she doesn't think it is the other Ethan, but she will ask him. This Ethan says it's okay, and then says he's going to the local shop. Does she want to come along? She says no thanks. Instead of driving off the property, Ethan parks his car up and doubles back around to the guest house. Meanwhile, Sophie sneakily leaves the house and goes to the guest house too. Ethan times it so they both go into the guest house simultaneously. He tousles his hair and removes his glasses, then pretends to be the other Ethan. Sophie says she needs to talk to him. She says that he is so good at articulating how she is feeling and it's what she's wanting to hear, but she doesn't know what to do. He mumbles he's glad, and is there anything else she wants to see him about? Way to go, Ethan. They get down to a bit of Ethan slowly makes his way to his car and drives back to the main house. He walks into the house despondently, and when Sophie asks, he says the grocery store was closed and walks off. Ethan is back in the guest house and Sophie offers him a mimosa. He said he's not in the mood. He says he's not even sure that she is real. He says it's bad enough he's losing his wife to a cooler version of himself, but even worse that he sees in her what he is losing. He says this is the weekend he's losing his wife. She says it wasn't just this weekend. He says, how do you know? She says,
Because as your wife, I know these things.
Looking out of the house window, Ethan sees Sophie leave the guest house, then moments later turn round and go back. Ethan is not happy about this. Ethan and Sophie are in the guest house bedroom. Sophie asks Ethan where he got his top from, and he completely sidesteps the question and climbs on top of Sophie. Other Ethan makes his way over to the guest house and starts banging on the door and calling for Sophie. Sophie goes to answer the door. Ethan comes into the house and searches for the other Ethan but cannot find him. Sophie is upset that he has disappeared and may never come back. She makes her way to the main house with Ethan in tow. Ethan says it's not real, but Sophie says that she is happy and that is real. Ethan asks how will this play out. She says she's not leaving. When they get to the house, they're surprised to see other Sophie and Ethan sitting there waiting for them. They sit down and other Ethan suggests they get to know each other. Ethan continues to say that he doesn't think other Ethan is real. Other Ethan says, I am real. I am sitting here. Other Ethan takes a passive-aggressive dig at Ethan and suggests they all have dinner. At dinner, Ethan asks them why they're not questioning the situation around them. Other Ethan comes up with a story suggesting that they should just enjoy the moment and go with it. Ethan says he doesn't buy it. Other Sophie is doing the dishes and tells Sophie not to worry. They drink some wine and Sophie starts digging to see what other Sophie knows about what she did with other Ethan. Other Sophie pulls her up on this immediately and gives the impression that she knows they had sex and is not happy about it. She says for the sake of the evening, let's just pretend to be pleasant to each other. Then pulls a power move by saying, on second thoughts, do you mind taking care of those dishes and walking off? Dang girl. After dinner, they're playing poker. Other Ethan is playing with Sophie and letting her win. Ethan points this out. Then the two Ethans start playing a game of poker. Other Ethan picks apart Ethan's game and points out his tell of pushing up his glasses. Other Ethan wins the game. Ethan gets pissed and says congratulations on being the biggest liar. Other Ethan turns this around on Ethan and tells Sophie about Ethan sneaking into the guest house with her and having sex with her while posing as other Ethan. He goes on to say, first he betrayed you by sleeping with somebody else, and now he's betrayed you by sleeping with you.
Fucking hell, other Ethan.
Other Ethan says, if you want to take some time, you can have the guest house. Ethan says he's not going anywhere, but Sophie says,
No, I want you to leave.
Ethan calls up the counselor to give him a bit of shit about the weekend. When out on the grounds, he notices the coupe from earlier and goes in to check it out. He looks at the computer and sees a bunch of folders with people's names. Opening the folders, he sees audio files. He listens to some. They are from sessions with the counselor. He looks in the trash can and sees a folder named Ethan and Sophie. There are 5 audio files inside. He opens the first file and the words I am Ethan, I am Sophie repeat over and over, slightly changing with each repetition until the counselor says that's getting good, we're almost ready. Ethan is confused. He goes back to the guest house and looks through the photos in the digital picture frame until he sees a picture with him and Sophie with a caption below. He is freaked out and gets up to leave, but he cannot open the front door. He can't open any doors or windows and he's trapped inside. He calls out for Sophie, but all he can hear is them swimming in the pool. He gives up trying to escape. In the morning, Ethan is sitting in a chair. Sophie comes into the guest house. She says we don't have much time. They think I am out getting fruit. She says a lot happened last night. Ethan says, who are you? Sophie or the other Sophie? She says, I'm not your wife. He says, what the hell is going on? She says, he fell in love with her. He's not supposed to fall in love with her. That's not how it works. She is supposed to fall out of love with you. That's how we become you and we get out of here. We're supposed to pit you against each other, and then it is your turn to stay. She asks him if he tried to get out last night, and tells him the closer we get to moving on, the closer you get to not being able to. She goes on to say when he got here, she was stuck in the guest house, and now he is stuck in the guest house. He tries to escape again, no luck. She says you're not trapped yet. I can get you out. She says only 2 people can leave today. To which he says, why are you helping us? She says I would rather be trapped here with him than him leave with her. Other Ethan is getting Sophie ready to go on a hike with him. Other Sophie is going to go on the hike with them and goes upstairs to borrow some of Sophie's clothes so not to disturb Ethan. Sophie shows other Sophie where her clothes are and asks if she needs anything else. Other Sophie says she wouldn't mind brushing her teeth, so Sophie goes to get her a toothbrush. Ethan is hiding out in the bathroom and asks Sophie to give him 1 minute. The other Sophie walks down the stairs and the other Ethan confuses her for the real Sophie. Ethan explains to Sophie that the whole weekend has been a big trap. Downstairs, other Sophie says she doesn't want to leave with Ethan. She wants to leave with him. Other Ethan says he wants to leave with her too and says he loves her. He goes to kiss her, and her face says it all. He eventually catches up and says you are not Sophie and asks where she is. He starts calling for her, and Ethan and Sophie move to the bedroom when they hear him call. Ethan pours his heart out and begs her to stay with him, acknowledging his faults. The other Ethan bursts through the door and asks her what he's been telling her. Ethan stands between them and a shoving match starts. They start getting physical and the other Sophie comes into the room. The other Ethan tells Sophie to come on, but she does not move. When he looks at the other Sophie, he gets a death stare coming back at him nobody would want to be on the end of. He looks out of the window, says fuck all you guys, and suddenly bolts out of the room. Ethan chases after him. They both run out of the house and down the driveway until eventually other Ethan hits some kind of force field. He is out cold on his back. They walk up to his body and Ethan says we're gonna get out of here. We've got to go. He looks at both of the Sophies and grabs one and jumps in the car and leaves. They drive past the other Sophie and Ethan as they leave. Ethan calls the counselor and says he's onto him and he's coming to see him. When they get to the counselor's office, it is completely stripped out except for the piano. We see Ethan and Sophie in the morning getting up. They are very lovey-dovey and having a great time. Sophie offers to make him breakfast. He loves this idea. She's in the kitchen and asks him what he wants. Eggs and bacon? A slow dawning realization comes over him as he realizes what has just happened. And that's the story of The One I Love. This has got a watch recommendation from us, as it is a fun, quirky, and original movie. Despite never really learning what the counselor is up to or how the whole thing works, it's an interesting watch and your time will hopefully not be wasted. Let us know what you think of The One I Love in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more movie synopses. Stay safe and take care.